Okay, I think we're about ready to begin. So if I didn't welcome you earlier, welcome to our Thursday refresher course. Today we're going to be talking about using comics in the English classroom. Okay. Just remember that you will receive a certificate of participation and a webinar handout in the next few days. That's the email there. If you don't receive it, just drop me an email and I'll get that out to you as soon as possible. The handout this week is going to be quite useful. It's got quite a few comics on it that you can print off and give to your students, and other worksheets, including one that relates to a video we're going to watch. Okay. Some comics here you might like, okay, but as you may know, comics are great resources to use with your students. Not only is the humour a great icebreaker, but they allow students to be creative and use language in new ways. I mean, language in comics is often quite unusual. Okay. Although traditional comics are not as popular in print form as they once were, when everyone used to buy comics, it is true that our screens are filled by superheroes who first appeared in print. So, you know, the students will know that people like Batman and Spider-Man and all these superheroes, most of them, if not all of them, were originally formed in these comics. So, you know, it's a great one to do. Okay. There are forms such as manga, which is the print version, and anime, which is the animated version. Okay, these are the sort of Japanese ones that I'm sure you're familiar with the names and what they look like. Those are really popular too. Okay, let me know. Some people are already doing it. So Sylvia's used one from The Guardian. Yep, political cartoons can be great too. Okay, you know, to see if students understand what they are. They're quite savage in British newspapers, particularly. Okay. Let us know in the chat if you've ever used them. Okay. If not, I hope I can convert you to using some. I've done them in a few lessons, and students seemed really keen. Right. By the end of this session, I hope you can better plan lessons incorporating comics. Okay. Should be able to exploit students' knowledge of comics and manga to create engaging activities. That is, you know, what they know how it works, even though they might not have analyzed it. But everyone knows how a speech bubble works, how a thought bubble works. Okay? And to inspire students to use creativity in using language. This is, I'm sure, what our real goal is. Okay, not to get them to pass exams, although that's nice. Okay, but the exam is just there so that we know their level. Okay, they can prove their level. What we really want them to do is, you know, to write correctly, to speak correctly, to be able to understand, read, and listen. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure everyone at some stage in their childhood had an experience of reading comics, whether it was just short ones or whether it was you used to buy Dylan Dog or things like this. Okay. What better than a shared experience to get people talking? Okay. This video that we're going to watch, it goes for a little while, so about 4 or 5 minutes. It could be used as a lead-in to a debate. Okay. Could also be used as a listening comprehension activity using the worksheet in the handout. So as you can see below, it's a bit small there because I didn't have much space, but there is a handout that you'll be receiving, and you can print that out and you'll get the worksheet too. So some questions, these are some of the comprehension questions from the worksheet. So let me know in the chat while you watch. What name was given to conveying stories on textiles in medieval Europe? Superman appeared in Action Comics 1 in 1939, true or false? And what were comics ordered to be after the creation of the comic code and laws? So we're going to have a look at this video here.
They are the handheld, take anywhere books filled with superheroes.
Can you hear it okay? Just let me know in the chat. I want to make sure everyone can hear it. I will put on the subtitles. Okay. Great.
Classic stories for adult dramas. Some of them originally sold for only 10 cents, but now go for millions. With stunning artwork and legendary stories, their pages have captivated readers for over 80 years. This is the history of comic books. Using images to communicate goes back to the 32nd century BC, when Egyptians devised hieroglyphs with over 1,000 images representing ideas. In the same way, tapestries told stories through scenes depicted on the lush textiles in medieval European times. Mass production of paper allowed for the next medium of sequential art to emerge. While printed forms of picture-based stories appeared in Europe prior, the first American example of a comic strip came in the form of The Yellow Kid. The kid's creator, Richard Outcault, infused the comic with political and social commentary. Due to the popularity of The Yellow Kid, other comic strips soon appeared. In 1933, Famous Funnies collected some of the serialized newspaper strips into a book format. Although this collection included reprintings, many historians have deemed this publication as the first comic book. In 1938, the golden age of comic books began with Action Comics #1. This first appearance of Superman ushered in the cape and cowl popularity of the superhero. The golden age would give birth to many of today's beloved heroes, including Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Captain America, and Captain Marvel. Many of the heroes grew so popular that they became symbolic elements in the war effort in World War II, and comic covers often depicted heroes beating up Hitler. Not all comics featured heroes, though. Many of the horror comics, such as EC's Vault of Horror, drew in readers who wanted their comics more dark and macabre. The taboo-breaking storylines and shocking artwork garnered too much attention. Psychiatrist Frederick Wertham filed a study called Seduction of the Innocent, where he claimed comic books to be a source corrupting the youthful readers. A Senate subcommittee investigated, and the comic industry self-imposed a set of codes and laws to keep comics upbeat and morally positive. In 1956, Showcase #4 introduced the world to a new version of a DC comic favorite, The Flash. Thus, the Silver Age of comics began. During this time, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby at Marvel Comics would create some of the most beloved heroes, including Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and the Incredible Hulk. By the 1970s, the counterculture popularity no longer wanted clean-cut heroes. An underground movement of comics rose, and artists like R. Crumb published adult-themed comics in small presses. Since the use of the Comics Code was optional, the underground movement needed no permission, and they had no limitations on their subject matters. By the 1980s, the modern era of comics saw the big two publishers going head-to-head, Marvel and DC. While they battled for top billing, their characters appeared on television prime time in Saturday morning cartoons. In smaller presses like Pacific, Eclipse, and Fantagraphics slowly entered into the market. The graphic novel also rose in popularity during the 80s. These longer works sometimes were printed comic story arcs, but many featured original, unseen material. This longer form allowed for more in-depth storytelling, and the dramatic content often won literary awards. When the 1990s hit, the comic book artists grew in celebrity status. Their popularity allowed them something hardly seen in the industry: a split from the big two publishers. Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and Jim Valentino formed their own company, Image, and rocked the comic book world. Events like the death of Superman brought comics into the public eye like never before. With the comic codes an outdated form of censorship, publishers abandoned its use. As digital readers became more prevalent, the comic book took new shape in digital form. With comic book characters so identifiable, So many of the comic books we read are made into film. Popular shows like The Walking Dead also use comic books as their source material. And so there's no question that the comic book industry entered a new high point in its history. So the next time you grab your favorite issue or graphic novel, appreciate how far comic books have come since the concept of sequential art began back in ancient Egypt. If you enjoyed this video,
I think it's a great introduction to these the history of comics. Okay, so I think most people got the answers correct. So the name of the textiles in medieval Europe was a tapestry. I think it was Sylvia, I think, mentioned in the chat that that would be a good idea for using in class. That is, in case you don't know, that the one we looked at was the Bayeux tapestry, which is a tapestry about the Norman invasion, so the Battle of Hastings. Okay, so you really should look up that if you're teaching the British history, because it is a little bit of Norman propaganda, really, to be honest. Not everything is actually historical in it, but it does narrate in a certain way the story of the invasion, including the death of Harold and the victory of William the Conqueror. So it's a great one there. Superman appeared in Action Comics 1 in 1939. I think it was false because I think it was 1938, if I'm correct. And as a few people have commented, morally, they were ordered to be morally positive. Okay, and then after about the 60s, they sort of changed again. Okay? I've included that link to that video there, so you can see that. Okay. Yes, you're right, Valentina. The Halley's Comet is in there, although it wasn't known as Halley's Comet at the time. But yeah, there is a comet in the sky, and that is actually historical too. Okay, so it's a great thing to look at. Now, obviously, these things are very easy to explore on the internet, so I'm sure there's a website devoted to it, if not many, that you can look in detail and click on parts of it. Okay. Anyway, one idea to do with your classes is give the students a panel from a comic strip and get them to dissect the situation. So when I talk about a panel 1 square, okay, I mean, it couldn't be necessarily just, you know, like 1 square of the top one, okay, but 1 square of the bottom one, they can read what's happening. They can see what's happening. You could maybe even obscure the words, the speech bubbles. Okay, can they identify the characters? Where's the scene set? What's happening? Okay, what's going to happen next? It's not really important if this is really what happens next or not. It's enough that they sort of explain this. We looked at this a little bit when we were looking at short films and when we're looking at media, things like this. Okay, it's good speculation practice, which is often needed in the Cambridge exam. So Cambridge exams from the B1 to the proficiency often give you a picture, and you have to talk about that picture. Now, B1 level, it's usually just describing the picture, but moving through B2 and C1, you need to speculate a bit more why you think the people are there, what you think they're doing. And comics are probably going to be much more interesting to your students than just a picture. They're also generally exciting. There's action happening, so they can use a lot more present continuous and things like that. You can also use them to introduce new vocabulary. There may be objects there, actions that you may want to evoke, see if they can find out these words. Excuse me for a moment. What you could also do is get your students to look at what has been used in the panel. Are there any speech bubbles? Okay. Thought bubbles too. Okay. Is there use of onomatopoeia? So, for example, that whoosh there. Okay. Can they provide examples? These are great because they're often shared between Italian and English. Okay? A lot of these words, they're the part of the comic that they don't translate. Excuse me. In small groups, each student completes a panel continuing the story in time given. So what you could do is give them that, I've included in the handout, this comic panel below without any figures, okay, but they've got to do at least one, okay, the speech bubble, okay, and then the thought bubble and the onomatopoeia. Okay. Jay's asking where you find the templates. I've got some websites in the useful links, so you can find a lot of these things in the useful links in the handout. Okay, and also a lot of these I've included in the handout as well, so you can see some of these comics. Okay, but there's plenty more material and websites that you can refer to. Okay. Each student completes a panel continuing the story. So what I'm saying is that the top left one student does, then the right one, and then you can put them all together. Okay. They pass the strip to the student on their left who does the same. So you can do different ones. Okay. So each person can start on one, and then they pass it to their left, and they have to complete two. Okay. When the whole strip is complete, one person can read the complete strip to the class. This is a good way of sort of collaboration, making them pay attention to what they're reading, and that influences their writing. Okay? This example, the one I've included in the handout, requires that they have an example of speech, thought, and using possibly reported speech too, and onomatopoeia. Okay, so it's a great sort of activity to get your students working together. Okay, these sort of things, you can also do this, not for this webinar, but in the sense that you can do this sort of thing as a writing exercise. They have to write a quick story. The first person writes a sentence, they pass it to the left, and they receive from the right, and they have to write the next sentence. So it's a similar sort of thing. Okay, and I think they have to put in some speech in there, but more importantly, they have to narrate it at the end. Everyone ends up with one. Okay? So you might have groups of 4 if you've got 4 panels. Okay? Whatever panels you have, that many people, each of them have them, and as they pass it, they have to write the next panel. Okay? This is one of my favorite activities. Okay, a blank cartoon. So you find some cartoons. You can find these quite easily. I've included a link. Okay. Can you think of a caption for these cartoons? Now, I'm not asking you what the real caption is, because to be honest, these ones actually were part of a competition where they didn't have a caption. You had to think of one. Okay. So have a look at them now. I'm going to leave this up for a moment. And then you can keep putting in the chat, and we'll look at my ideas. My ideas, I'm sure, will not be as good as your ones. Okay, so you have the man at the, as we'd say, the pearly gates. Okay, the caveman talking to St. Peter. Then we have what looks like a live fish. Okay, and then the last one we have a man. Like, looks like he's been crawling across a desert but coming into a bar. Okay, so see if you can come up with some nice ideas. As I said, I'll give you my ideas at the end, but they're only my ideas. Okay, I've given you also some other ones, okay, on this handout, so they're not the ones that I put there. Okay, but since 1998, the popular weekly magazine The New Yorker has run a cartoon caption contest, printing single frame cartoons. So we're not talking about ones that tell a story, okay? And they present a potentially funny situation, and they award a prize for the best caption. And if you go to the website, you can actually see a lot of the entries, and even not just the winner, but the runners up. Okay, so as you can see on the handout, you've got 2 that actually narrate a story. Okay, one that you actually have to finish. Okay, and then the 2 at the top, one has a sort of strange situation where the people are on the sofa on the ceiling, and the second one with the polar bears on an iceberg, a small iceberg. So these sort of things can be really fun. And to be honest, they're really easy to create too. Find a comic, okay, find a cartoon, blank out the words, which you can either do just by covering them before you photocopy them or digitally, and put it there. I mean, to be honest, with the New Yorker cartoons, they generally don't have speech bubbles. They generally have the words at the bottom, so you can just cut that off. Okay. This idea could be used in the classroom with the New Yorkers, or as in the handout, any other cartoons. Okay. What's really good is to start the activity by urging students to describe what they can see in the cartoon. So, you know, we're not trying to make this into just something where they just have to write something. You know, we'd want to get it maybe, if not a whole lesson, half a lesson out of this. Okay, so they can describe it in at least, you know, on the two cartoons on the left hand side of that worksheet. There's a lot of things to describe there. Look at all the objects in the house. Okay, and then in the cartoon with the man cooking, okay, it's going to be great. On the right hand side, I mean, they can describe the sort of situation as well. Okay? Usually they're an unusual situation, so they give you a great opportunity to encourage students to talk about things that are, you know, not just the sort of Cambridge prompts, which are just, I don't know, people watching TV, people studying, things like that. Okay? Ask for some suggestions in the captions. Maybe the teacher could suggest some. Best to, you know, maybe do them quickly so yours aren't the best ones, you know, to encourage them a bit. Okay. Sylvia's put them a link in the chat there, so great. Thank you very much. Okay. Put students in pairs or groups. Okay, students come up with a caption for each cartoon. Teacher monitors, suggesting vocabulary or grammar changes. So again, usually worth monitoring. I always think it's worth doing a little bit of error correction before they present to the class, so as you know, they're not presenting incorrect grammar or vocabulary. A really fun activity, and then they present to the class. Okay, you know, you may. I think there's a website to put on there where you can even do this online, so they can maybe even present them on the LIM. Okay, which would be fun. And then, you know, students vote on the best caption for each cartoon. Okay? Bit of competition's always good fun, okay? As long as it's sort of fun competition, I think. Okay? Another great thing to get them reading carefully is reorder the comic strip. Okay, elementary student sort of thing, I think. Okay? A simple comic strip, you know, we're talking about, you know, 4 panels, maybe 5 at the most, could even be 3. Okay, can be cut up, and students have to reorder the panels into the correct order. It's a fun type of reading comprehension which can really engage students. This one is not in the correct order, as you might imagine. Okay, so what you really need to do there is put in the chat, let me know. I'm going to show you in a moment, but let me know which order you think these should go in. Okay, which one you think is first. Just write the letters in order and tell me how you think they are. Okay. I think a few people have got it. Let me know if you've got any other ideas. I think most people are getting the same thing, so I think people are getting it right. Okay. So this is as it is. Okay. Bit of irony there. Okay, the man taking orders from the dog. Okay. Great little thing. You know, reading comprehension can be really intimidating for younger students, okay? Or, you know, elementary students. So why not give them some visual help too? Instead of them relying just on the text, they can do it. Remember, this can sort of be useful. There's some activities in the Cambridge exams that have to put in paragraphs or sentences into the correct thing. So you could even just remove one panel and say, where did they think it goes? Okay, that could be great fun too. Okay, I think everyone who did it in the chat got it correct. Okay. As we often do, I want to finish up with a little bit about literature. Okay. As some people commented in the chat, that graphic novels are really popular nowadays, and many classics of English literature are available as graphic novels. You can see 1984 there, Pride and Prejudice, Romeo and Juliet is even as a manga, okay? And whilst the Picture of Dorian Gray, graphic novel form. Okay? Shakespeare's plays are actually really good, okay, as comics. I think what you need to remember is that, you know, even for me, even for native English speakers, reading a play is not the natural way to see it. Okay, you know, Shakespeare never published his plays collected in his lifetime because we assume, he thought they were to be seen. And while we can't always go to see one, and maybe the films also lose something, a graphic novel has this visual element. Okay? So it allows us to actually see the people, okay? And as well as reading them. Okay? So a visual element is really great. Okay, Sylvia, I don't know, you might be able to find some online. You can certainly order them, and I'm sure there's apps and things where you can, you know, buy graphic novels, a digital version of it that you can look at on a tablet. You'd have to look at. I'm sure there's comic viewers and things like that, but yeah, you can certainly order them. Okay, but you know, think about, instead of assigning the book to read, you could encourage them with the 1984, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Okay, they can really, they have, a lot of these actually have maybe not all of the original text, but most of the original text. It might be abridged, okay, and they'll certainly encourage reluctant readers. Okay. There's even a series of manga Shakespeare, so you can you can see the Shakespeare. Okay, obviously it's a little bit updated with the scooter there from Juliet. I don't remember that in the original one, but you know, what you could also do is, I know that a lot of my students love drawing manga or drawing cartoons. Why not get them to illustrate a passage? You know, if you were with us last week, we talked about Coketown in Hard Times by Charles Dickens. I'm sure some of the people could illustrate this. Okay, they could even, you can even give a description of a character and someone could illustrate it, or maybe the other way around. Okay, you could give them a character from a comic and they could write about it. Those sort of things, I think, you know, reluctant readers are going to really appreciate the visual element. And the visual, you know, a lot of our students, I'm sure, as you know, are visual learners. So there's much support that they can get. And to be honest, you know, we're usually looking at text in relation to something else as well, something we, you know, we can see. If you're reading about a product is in front of you. Okay. A few people put in comments. Let me know if you've got any more for number 1, 2, or 3. Okay. These are just my ideas. Okay. I had the St. Peter saying, well, if you prefer fire, I might have somewhere else for you. The next one I had was, well, the menu did say fresh from the sea. And the last one was 1 martini, extra dry. Okay. Feel free not to laugh at these. These were just the ones I came up from the top of my head. I'm sure you have better ones. If you think you've got some great ones, please write to me, and I'd love to see your ideas. Okay. Obviously, manga and anime may seem a mystery for us. Okay, yeah. If you're like me, you may not know so much about it, but we can exploit this lack of knowledge. It's always a great opportunity when you don't know about something that your students know more about. That gives them the power, that gives them the motive to explain. And so, you know, just like we ask our students about what they did on the holidays or at the weekend, because it's their life and that's the words they want to explain. If they're into manga and anime, they will want to talk about it. And a lot of these things being international, I know anime obviously and manga are Japanese, but a lot of them, you know, these original Spider-Man and things like this come from English anyway. Okay? Why not explain to students what it is, why they like, ask students to explain to you or to other students what it is, why they like it, describe their favorites. Okay? Jay's asking, is this a weekly course? The webinars, yes, we do this every week. Okay, so please enroll. Okay, I'll tell you in a moment what we're going to do next week. Okay, drawing stick men, not exactly cartoons, but stick men can be great for explaining tenses, vocabulary, grammar. Okay, comics could be great to demonstrate narrative tenses. Okay. Above all, and I think we should always keep this in mind, comics can be something fun to do in the lesson. Okay, just because they're having fun doesn't mean they're not learning. In fact, if they're having fun and there's some content in there, they're probably learning better than if you're bombarding them with other things that they're not interested in. So, you know, meeting them in the middle, giving them something that they like, whether it's manga as well as the Shakespeare, or you know, letting them draw a bit and then they have to describe it. Remember that you know, comics generally don't have a lot of written content in them, so you really want to get them talking as well. Okay. Thanks for Sylvia for putting some links in there. I'd encourage everyone to check them out. I've got some links in the handout too. Please let me know if you've got any ideas. Sorry, Linda asks where you can find graphic novels. Graphic novels, have a look on Amazon, okay, but I'm sure there are websites that you can find them. They are novels that, I mean, you see, I've even got one here, I think, you know, a graphic novel. So they're actually, you probably can't see, but they're proper books, right? But they're filled up with, oh, sorry, I'm disappearing with the background. Okay. Anyway, let us know if you've got any ideas for future sessions. Okay. Thanks a lot for your attention. As I said at the beginning, you will receive a certificate of participation by email soon. If you don't, please contact me at that email address. I'll get it to you. And the same goes for the handout. Okay. Claudia asks if you can have the recording. The recordings are uploaded. If you go to YouTube and search for MLA World, you'll see that we update them every couple of weeks. We put on a few of them every week. So we've got hours and hours of these recorded. Okay. Another webinar will be next week. So please join us. We're going to be talking about teaching grammar. It's not going to be a boring thing. It's not going to be the ideas that you generally have. We're going to have a look at alternative ways to teach grammar. So some new ideas. Okay. I'd really encourage you to join it. I think you'll get some great ideas. Okay. And let me know if you use these comics in your lessons. Thanks a lot for joining me, and I hope to see you next week. Bye, everyone.